Alright, welcome back to the channel. This is probably part 2 of the video. If not, I just made a really long part. One video and only one part. The rear brake's getting hung up. So I push this on, it stays forward. See, that's not sliding back. I can grab it with some pliers, rotate it back. It's still pretty tight. I tried working it free back and forth with some PV blaster in there. It didn't really make a difference. So I'm going to pulling the hub off here and getting this brake drum cover off. So that's what I'm doing right now in this part of the video. This is a little loose, but it's a 30 millimeter. See if this thing will come loose. Easy enough. Got to pull off these maybe 8 millimeters around the outside here. I'll put all my tools away. I thought I was done for the day. But when you're on a roll, keep on going. Yep, 8s. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Let's open it up. I think this should just pry right off. Maybe. Okay, a bit of brake dust in there. Yeah, I'm going to dump that outside. And this should just hopefully slide right off. Maybe. To take the brake off, right? There we go. Okay. I think it's where this shaft goes through here, through the housing. It's just a little seized up, not used. But his brake stinks like, I don't know, it smells, it just stinks. So the drum looks fine. Let me see. Yeah. I was hoping to find something obvious here, but I have to keep working this shaft back and forth. I'll do that off camera, see if I can get a little easier movement. That's what's holding out. The spring here should be able to bring that back, but it's just not being able to overcome something in here. So I don't know if I got to grease in between here, pull the shoes off and grease there. I doubt that's the friction that's causing this resistance. So yeah, I'll monkey around that a little off camera and let you know what happens. So that shaft is pretty frozen up. So right now I have this pipe wrench on the top of that bracket. I pulled off the e-brake cable, so that wasn't in the way. Right now I'm going to stick a little brake grease on this pad here and that flat surface there. There's not much resistance there. The spring is, these are moving freely. I don't think that's an issue, but every little bit of friction that we can reduce, we should, you know. Okay, so now it's going to be just trying to get PV blaster to go in there. I sprayed a little bit on this side here and over there, and eventually this should work its way free. I don't want to damage this rear brake cable, so I'm going to pause for a second, get that cable out of there. That's basically just take these wing nuts off all the way. They have a lot of threads on them. Put that in the parts dish. There it is. There it is. You pull the cable forward. You should be able to see this from this angle or not. The cable forward, and this little plug, or this little piece here will come out. Spring will come off as well. And then we'll just take those cables and push them both forward out of the bracket, so they're completely out of the way. Get my encourager back on here. And maybe you know a better tool to do this, but as far as I'm concerned, this is working pretty good. It's just this thing is stiff, boy. And I obviously can pull the shaft out, I prefer not to. It's nowhere near free enough yet, that's for sure. But this pipe wrench keeps wanting to walk off. Good job. Lazy Cobalt brand. Alright, well, now you see what I'm up to. Zoom out a little bit so you can kind of get a better image of it. This, up and down, and that brake shoes open and closed. But then it's just loosen back up, hopefully. Alright, I'll come back when it's done. 5 minutes later, starting to free up some. So I'm not come back down, it's only with the weight of this pipe wrench here, so. But we're getting there. Alright, so it's getting there. Right here, from here it'll bring us up back, which is probably all the brakes actually need. But I want to get the full stroke cleaned up. So even this should release, it's not. Put gloves on now that I scarred this up pretty much. I switched from PB Blaster to now silicone lubricant, hoping to get that in there. Alright, well, I ended up taking off the arm, this little washer right here, and the spring. There's a felt seal. I think there's a rubber seal inside the felt seal. That felt seal is supposed to absorb oil, I think. Maybe keep water out, I'm not sure. This thing was pretty caked up with some sand and whatnot, so I'm hoping I kind of squeezed that felt out, the felt seal, and shot some silicone in there. Hopefully that'll lubricate it up a little bit. We'll try that. Put them back together now. Alright, I think this is about as good as it's going to get. So springs back right there. And there are 2 additional springs up here for the cables. I'll stick a little more brake slide grease into here before I put it together, but it's a whole lot better than it was. And I think this is all it really needs to move for the brake to actually activate. If it goes past, it gets a little stuck. I'm going to try and work it a little more, and then I'll put it back together. Okay, I think we're good there. Let's see which one went up top, which one went down bottom. Yeah, I should have marked them. Got to feed those through the corresponding holes. And then we install these springs, one on each. Just touch them together, and now they're, there we go, separated again. And these springs will help push this back some. So that's not what they're meant to do, but it'll do a little bit of pushing back. All right, welcome back. What we're going to work on next is the alignment. It appears that it's towed out. The front tires are kind of spreading as they come forward. So my very accurate calibrated 2 pieces of 1x5 pine touching the outside of the tires and the measurement on close to the tire, we're at 46. Further we get away, 47 3/4. So it definitely is towed out. So in this front brake, adjuster is frozen. So we're going to pop this, jack it up, pop the wheel off, free up, first of all, the tie rod end, and get that towed in a little bit, as well as pull that brake drum off and free up that adjustment lever. So that's what's coming up next. Also, I got these fancy new brake adjuster covers. Came in the mail yesterday. I put those on. So we'll go ahead and pull off these 2 8mm bolts, and hopefully the brake drum will come off. We'll free up that adjuster. There we go. Okay. I can get you a better angle here. This right here is the brake adjuster. I tried adjusting it from the outside of the wheel the other day. It wouldn't move at all. So I'm pretty sure this is all frozen up here. So we'll work on getting this freed up so we can adjust these brakes out a little bit. And then bleed the brakes, and we'll hopefully have better front brakes. Alright, well the adjuster's freed up enough to actually get it to a point where it's adjusted okay. It's not loose enough where I can just go in there with the screwdriver after this drum's been put on there to adjust it. So I want to get it to a point where this drum can just slide over there, but also be able to have the brake drum still move freely. So I think we're at a point right now where we can just slide it over the shoes, and then it's pretty, I don't feel much resistance there at all. It's just barely touching, which is perfect. So I think we're going to go with that point right there. Before we do the alignment, I'm going to do a quick brake bleed on these. So hopefully with one person I can reach enough with my long arms to pump it up, hold it down, and open the bleeder valve. But first thing you do is obviously remove these two Phillips head screws off. Where's that? Top of the reservoir. Make sure you don't get any dirt in there when you do this. So take the screws out, pull the reservoir off very carefully. I thought I was recording the whole time, but I wasn't, unfortunately. So I'm trying to bleed this thing with just without anybody's help. So pull the reservoir off, and this bleeder's now tightened. I've done it a few times already, there's rusty colored fluid coming out. So pump it up, hold the lever down with the left, right hand, pop the bleeder, and then you'll get fluid to come out that's not clear like it should be. So for now, I'll fill the reservoir with some fresh fluid, keep that process going until I get clear fluid out of there. So I'll do that on both sides off camera. One video shot of the fluid that's coming out of here. If you're looking at that tray, you can kind of see it, but let's see what I got. Pump it up, hold it down. Pump it up, hold it down. Before you release the lever, obviously close the bleeder. You know what I'm going to try to do now is just do a gravity bleed. So off camera, I'll just open this. So not squeezing the handle at all, but just open this. See if we can get the gravity to start pulling that fluid down. Yeah. What that'll do is it'll slowly draw down fluid from the reservoir. It's looking a little clearer as it keeps coming. It won't be as fast, but I don't have to pump it up at all. So I'll do that for a little while. Off camera, obviously. Currently gravity bleeding both sides. I pulled the wheel off that side and just kind of getting the fluid to drip down both. I just want to show you the color of this fluid coming out. Yeah, that's a rusty color. Therefore, there's a little water in there, a little rust in the lines. So, good thing we're bleeding out this system. Again, if you're ever doing a gravity bleed, do not walk away because your reservoir will run out, and then you will be guaranteed to almost fill your lines with air. So, I'm gravity bleeding both fronts at the same time. It's slow going. But I'm not walking away. I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm working on the tie rods as well in parallel. But again, I'm not walking away, so I'm not going to run out of fluid. I've topped this off maybe 4 times so far, but it's working pretty good so far. And the brakes will be a whole lot better when they're done. Okay, if you've never done a tie rod adjustment or an alignment, this is the tie rod right here. Tie rod ends on both sides, and there'll be a lock nut going from the tie rod into the tie rod end. There'll be on this machine a 17 or 19 millimeter nut on both sides. One will be a regular right-handed thread, which is the outside one, so lefty-loosey. The other one will be a left-handed thread because, I'll tell you why in a little bit, that'll be righty-to-loosey. So you want to get in there and this lock nut on the inside, go clockwise, looking at it, looking at the top of the nut. This side, go counterclockwise like normal. So once you have those loosened up, then you'll actually turn the tie rod itself. It's almost like a turnbuckle. So by turning this rod, it'll spread or tighten both ends of the tie rod in or out. Okay, on this machine, it's a 10 millimeter flat. This flat right here, I'm not sure how the lighting is on this camera, but right here is the flat in the tie rod. So it's 10 millimeters. So I'm not sure if you got to turn this in or out, or which direction we got to turn it to actually get this thing to spread. But we'll figure that out here in a second. Okay, so that's going in, so we want to turn it this way to try and get the toe to go in. So we want to spread this, extend this tie rod out a little bit. So that's 1 half turn. one turn, then see how it looks. Yeah, so that was correct. So anyway, you kind of monkey around with that, and then don't forget to tighten your lock nuts in the end, so we don't lose adjustment there. Play around with that until you feel like you got the alignment correct. While I was working the tie rod, the gravity bleed I think is done. The fluid coming out is clean and clear on both sides. And obviously you catch it right here, and then your fingers clear. This side, same thing, it's clear. So our brakes are bled. We just, cleaned out all the new fluid. I guess it's called a brake fluid flush. So that part is done. We have to close the bleeders, put the rubber caps back on there, and then we will top off the reservoir one last time, and then install the cap back on there. So that's all there is to it as far as a brake flush and or bleed. Brake fluid is pretty caustic, so after you're done, spray it down with some brake clean to get all that fluid off there. Up here by the reservoir as well. Just let that kind of spread around a little bit. Make sure you buy enough brake fluid to do the job. You know what I'm buying next time at the auto parts store? More brake cleaner. Okay, well off camera, remember last time I was not having proper charge coming to the battery. So off camera I reordered one of those voltage regulator and replaced that. So right rear tire, it's up here. Hopefully the camera will catch it. It's this right here. So there's a connector right here. Pull it off. There's two 8mm bolts. Pull those off. Replace with this new one from Amazon or eBay or an OEM one. Put dielectric grease across the connector before you put it in. It keeps water out. Then I put a new battery in last night as well. Amazon special. And bolted this back in there. So it's charging now. Charging a little high, actually 15 volts or so. So I do have to double check that it does not go over 15.5 volts at 5,000 RPMs with the high beams on. So I got to double check that, make sure it's not putting out too much, and make sure that voltage regulator rectifier is working properly. Otherwise, new air filter coming in today, and I did put these, like I said, the plugs over there to keep the water out. Okay, I got a new F30 amp fuse in from Honda, so I'm just going to show you where the spare goes inside this compartment. So there's the seat off, back of the quad is over here. Battery is right underneath here. Back here is the main fuse. So pull that up, it'll kind of dislodge from its holder, and then you'll pull the actual plastic part with the wires forward out of this rubber housing. We'll do off camera. So anyway, I pulled this plastic fuse out, and then there'll be a little latch right here. Pull that latch, and that'll unhinge, and we'll be able to open that up. Okay, so there's that side with the replacement fuse, then I have this housing right here. And that extra F fuse goes right in that slot right there. Alright, so the spare fuse is now in there, and the housing will put that back on, and then that'll stay with the quad in case you break down trail. Hopefully you can replace that. Alright, the fuse housing is back in there, and we're done putting the spare F fuse away. I also didn't show this, but off camera I installed the new foam filter. So this foam filter goes around a metal cage housing. So you untwist this little support back here from the housing, and then put the new foam, after you oil it up, put the foam filter around that housing, put the housing back up, and attach it to the boot that goes into the carb. Alright, also I mentioned in my last video about the new rectifier voltage regulator and the charging value. So at full throttle almost with high beams on, I was reading just under 15.5 volts, which is the max spec per the manual. So I think the rectifier regulator is good, battery's good, it fires right up. One last thing was the rattle from the front. Some folks in the comments section says probably the timing chain. I'm going to take a look at that cam chain tensioner, see if I can take a look, see if that's still working. And that sound, that whirring sound as it slows down, a couple of different suggestions in the comments. One was that it was the one-way bearing, and I think that's probably what it is. But one other person had a suggestion on something to try and fix for a different part of the clutch. So we'll try that first as well before we just default to understanding that it is the one-way bearing. All right, let's try a very cold start. The engine is ice cold. It's cold here in the Northeast. I'm holding exhaust right now. Obviously, having the starter, I'm not lying to you. So, key on, choke on, Honda power. quick walk around. It's really cold out. Let's take this thing for a test ride. Front brake's working good, back brake's working good. Get a little backfire and deceleration there. Okay, so let's check the one-way bearing real quick. So if I put it in like first gear, it'll slow down. And once RPMs get low enough, now it's freewheeling. So yeah, that one-way bearing is shot in this. I do hear some clackety-clack in front of the engine. So one-way bearing is doing something. It's not completely dead. It's still slowing us down somewhat, but it's not perfect. Every once in a while it'll kind of grab right there, it's slowing us down. Now it's freewheeling, then it slows us down there. My hands are freezing, we're going inside. And I think this quad hopefully is about done. I can use a few more things, but I think it's good enough for banging around the farm here. So, all right, maybe that'll be the end. If so, thanks for watching.